Pay heed to Jason Chen, 22, a polished computer science scholar whose spotless reputation masks a clandestine duplicity. Beneath that agreeable grin resides a labyrinth of concealed intent, and Jasmine Pace has scarcely 18 minutes left on her mortal clock. She steps toward his apartment complex on an icy November dusk, believing she is retreating into the sanctuary of someone she esteems, unaware she is walking straight into a snare woven with quiet malevolence. This evening, Jasmine anticipates nothing more than the simple serenity of companionship with her boyfriend. Yet for Jason, the verdict of his conscience has already been carved in stone. What unfolds next is a brutal chronicle of 72 hours, a triad of days that will fracture countless lives. Jasmine Pace was never merely another young collegiate drifting through coursework and aspirations. She was the pulsing heart of her lineage, the luminous presence others leaned upon when the world grew jagged. Her sister Gabby would later confess that Jasmine possessed an uncanny ability to make wounded souls feel witnessed, as if she could mend despair with a single attentive glance. At Chattanooga's community college, Jasmine balanced academic pursuits with grand visions of nurturing her own family one day. Those closest to her dubbed her Jazzy, a moniker that fit like a melody. She maneuvered through existence with brisk brightness, fiercely shielding those she cherished. Her nieces idolized her, and her godson, little Juan, glowed whenever she crossed a threshold. Jasmine gathered stray cats with the sentimental devotion others reserve for heirlooms for rescues, each doted upon as though stitched directly into her heart. But November of 2022 pressed upon her family like a suffocating storm. Her grandmother's battle with cancer reached its cruel end, and grief swaddled Jasmine in a heaviness she could neither shrug off nor escape. Loved ones understood her tendency to retreat inward, to cocoon herself in solitude. When sorrow grew unwieldy, she would sometimes drift quietly for a day or two, and no one ever interrogated that withdrawal. That pattern, innocent, familiar, would become the seamless camouflage for something far more diabolical. Katrina Pace had readied Thanksgiving supper with maternal anticipation, expecting Jasmine at the table as promised. But a terse text arrived that morning. Jasmine claimed she needed distance and would spend the week with her friend Emma. Given the recent bereavement, Katrina suppressed her unease, yet the disquiet roared back when she saw the Facebook post "Enjoying Thanksgiving with my baby," paired with a photo of Jasmine in scant attire. Her daughter never paraded herself online like that. She was measured, private, acutely aware of her digital footprint. Something in the tableau clanged against Katrina's instincts. When Travis Pace viewed the photograph, dread gripped him like an icy fist. Jasmine's tattoos, the intricate cartography of her life, etched along her right arm, were conspicuously absent. Each inked emblem was a chronicle, added gradually over months. They could not simply vanish. The woman in the image bore a counterfeit resemblance, fabricated with disturbing precision. Someone was masquerading as Jasmine. Katrina immediately phoned Emma. Her voice broke as Emma explained that Jasmine was not with her and had never intended to be. Every message that had trickled into the family's phones, insisting that Jasmine needed space or solitude, had been forged. Friends and relatives alike had received identical pleas urging them to leave her undisturbed. But in truth, not one person had spoken to Jasmine for days. That realization struck like a thunderclap, and the Pace family did not delay, did not negotiate, did not wait for benign explanations. They mobilized, driven by instinctual terror, because something far darker than grief had begun to unfurl in the shadows. They launched their search without hesitation, propelled by a mother's primal intuition that calamity had already unfurled. Katrina unlocked the My Chevy tracking system linked to Jasmine's white Chevrolet Equinox, and the GPS beacon pulsed from a parking lot at Signal View Condominiums on Mountain Creek Road, a place Jasmine had no earthly reason to visit. By the time the family arrived, twilight had surrendered to nightfall on November 26th. 4 silent days had passed since anyone had glimpsed Jasmine alive. The Equinox told a bleak story. The driver's seat was shoved back to accommodate someone towering over Jasmine's modest 5'2" stature. Her belongings lay strewn like discarded echoes, hinting that another set of hands not hers had authored the vehicle's final journey. Katrina dialed 911. Chattanooga officers arrived, scribbled notes, and delivered a response that would scar the investigation like an open wound. Jasmine was an adult, they said. Adults may vanish by choice, No overt signs of foul play. After trading contact details, they simply departed, leaving her parents stranded beneath flickering lamplight and rising dread. But Katrina refused to bow to bureaucratic indifference. She contacted the family's phone carrier. Jasmine's line fell under their shared plan, granting her full access to the digital breadcrumb trail. What she discovered cracked the facade wide open. Jasmine's phone had been dormant for days, no calls placed, no outgoing communication. Every text, every fabricated Facebook update, insisting she was fine, existed only while her device remained mute and untouched. One number, however, appeared again and again, a 71-minute call, anchored on the night of November 22nd, the night Jasmine vanished. With police standing beside her, Katrina dialed the number. Jason Chen answered, a computer science student at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, a young man Jasmine had met weeks earlier on Bumble. Their relationship was casual, too inconsequential for Jasmine to ever mention his name to her family. Now, suddenly, he was the last person to have spoken to her. When asked if he'd heard from Jasmine, if she was safe, if he knew where she might be, his reply came quick, clipped, rehearsed. He claimed he hadn't spoken to her in days, claimed their last call lasted only a few minutes. But Katrina held the phone records in her trembling hands. 71 minutes, an hour and change. A conversation no one would simply forget. The officers heard him lie. They heard Katrina confront him with the evidence. They witnessed a mother pleading for action against a young man clearly concealing truth. Their response? Nothing. They dismissed her desperation, stepped away, and abandoned the parents to unravel the nightmare alone. Exhausted but resolute, Katrina and Travis combed once more through the digital threads on her phone, searching for the faintest overlooked clue. Then they found it, a lone text from Jasmine's phone, time-stamped in the early hours of November 23rd. No words, no context, only a dropped location pin. 110 Tremont Street, an apartment building, sent at precisely 2 a.m. Jasmine had never dropped a random pin before, certainly not in the dead of night. This may have been the final flare she managed to send before everything went horribly wrong. The next morning, Katrina and Travis drove to the address. Desperation steeled their resolve as they knocked on every door in the building, pleading for scraps of information. Most tenants answered. Most had never seen Jasmine, but apartment 210 remained impenetrably silent. No footsteps, no voices, no response. Then, gradually, whispers from neighbors began to surface. A violent commotion had erupted from that unit around 2 a.m. on November 23rd, the very hour the pin was sent. The timing collided with chilling precision. The neighbors' accounts of shrieks, footsteps, and pandemonium matched Jasmine's dropped location pin to the minute. At 2 a.m., something violent had exploded inside apartment 210, and through a mixture of persistence, intuition, and sheer parental desperation, the details differ depending on who retells it. Katrina and Travis gained access to the unit. A notebook resting near the entrance bore a name that made their stomachs collapse. Jason Chen. The very same Jason Chen who feigned ignorance. The same young man who pretended a 71-minute call never existed. The apartment itself was a compact open layout space kitchen dissolving into a small living area, with a short hall leading to a single bedroom and bathroom. Almost everything could be surveyed at a glance. And right there, on the kitchen counter, sat a small travel bag, Jasmine's bag. A drawer revealed more damning proof. Travis unearthed his daughter's driver's license and credit cards. He removed them slowly, methodically, placing them where any officer with working eyes should have noticed them. Evidence, confirmation, a glaring contradiction to Jason's claim that he barely knew her whereabouts. Cleaning products cluttered the apartment like grotesque ornaments, bottles, sprays, sponges, chemicals, a frantic attempt to erase something that refused to stay buried. Katrina called Chattanooga police once more. Officers returned, listened to neighbors talk about the late-night commotion, scribbled a few lines onto a form, and then vanished again. No warrant, no urgency, no meaningful action. Watching their taillights disappear, Katrina felt something inside her harden into resolve. She refused to be dismissed again. She went back inside Jason Chen's apartment, not timidly, not apologetically, but driven by a mother's raw determination. Not once, not twice, repeatedly, over the next several hours, she seized notebooks, electronics, phones, a camera, an iPad, anything that smelled like truth. She stopped waiting for permission from those who refused to act. If police wouldn't investigate her daughter's disappearance, she would. Outside, Travis combed the property while Katrina gathered her own evidence inside. Two parents shouldering a burden that never should have been theirs. Finally, close to midnight, Chattanooga police reappeared with a search warrant. What they uncovered inside apartment 210 shattered any lingering hope. Bloodstains, faint but undeniable, marked the hardwood. More hid in the grit of the bathroom grout. The bedroom carpet was mottled with discoloration. Spatter freckled the bathroom walls and door. The sea of cleaning products suddenly became a grim confession. Outside, officers retrieved 2 white sneakers and blue trousers buried among refuse. Inside, shards of broken glass glimmered across the living room like remnants of violence. Heavy furniture had been shoved and dragged, leaving clear tracks where something or someone had once been concealed. In the bedroom, the telltale outlines of recently shifted furniture framed a dark, expansive stain beneath the bed. Atop the mattress lay a kitchen knife. Crime scene technicians doused the unit in Blue Star. When the lights dimmed and the chemical reaction ignited, the hallway erupted with luminescent bursts, glowing signatures of blood that had been scrubbed, smeared, washed, but not forgotten. Jasmine Pace's missing person case was no longer a mystery. It was now a homicide. But her body, her final location, remained unknown. Detectives pulled surveillance footage from the building and nearby establishments, hoping to reconstruct Jason's movements. They found the white Chevrolet Equinox arriving before midnight on November 22nd. Hours later, the SUV departed, but the driver was not Jasmine. A figure in a pale hoodie gripped the wheel. The Equinox was later abandoned at Signal View condominiums. The driver climbed into a dark Prius, likely a rideshare, which transported him away. At 8:30 p.m. on November 23rd, that same Prius delivered Jason Chen back to his apartment building.
Is it patient now? Is it placing handcuffs? No. Bumble Police Department, we're going to be connecting you with the questions. We're assisting Jen.
Okay. And is there like calls or anything?
Yeah, like the next one. That's it. Okay. Yeah. We're going to let them do that, but I don't want to speak for them. You know, I want you to misinform you of anything, so they'll tell you all that when we get down there. So just take it from them. They're good on this. We'll let them explain it because we don't want to pile on information. We'll let them one time and let it all down. Okay. All right, so if you will, just face away from me. All right, do you have anything?
Piece by piece, hour by hour, the truth was taking shape, and it was unmistakably drenched in blood. A neighboring Ring camera, posted beside the exit door of the apartment complex, chronicled Jason Chen's movements with cold precision. The footage revealed him slipping out multiple times throughout the day. At 8:27 p.m., mere minutes before a figure in a pale hoodie steered Jasmine's Equinox away from the lot, Jason was seen ducking through that same doorway. But it was his other excursions that exposed his intentions with chilling clarity. Walmart's surveillance captured him browsing alone that morning, filling his cart with peroxide, bandages, and an array of cleaning agents, the sort of items a man purchases not to heal, but to erase. The overhead cameras provided an unmistakable angle of his footwear, white sneakers, the very pair later found hidden among refuse outside his apartment, now turned into silent witnesses. Adding another layer of depravity, Jason wove theft into his morning errands. He slipped pricey items through the self-checkout under the guise of asparagus, pilfering while preparing to conceal something far darker than petty shoplifting. That evening, more surveillance showed him at Walgreens stocking up on paper towels and additional supplies, a grim prelude for a space that had clearly endured profound violence. Then, at nearly 6 p.m., cameras recorded a figure in that same signature white hoodie struggling to drag a hefty suitcase from the apartment building's front door. The bag's weight forced him to tug and maneuver it across the pavement with visible strain. Moments later, Jason Chen's black Toyota Camry rolled out of the lot. Detectives turned to Jasmine's phone data, and what they uncovered cinched the timeline. Her device had accompanied Jason to Walmart that morning, though she hadn't appeared on camera. After he loaded the heavy suitcase into his Camry, her phone pinged along his route leading them to Suck Creek Road, a serpentine stretch known for its remoteness and shadowed terrain even under the midday sun. On December 1st, investigators combed that bleak riverbank. They hoped they were wrong. They prayed there'd be no discovery. Then Then they found the suitcase. Inside, bundled in layers of plastic, lay 98-pound Jasmine Pace. Her body had been bound in restrictive restraints not law enforcement grade, but flimsy versions one might order online. One chain had snapped, proof she had fought with every ounce of strength she had left. The autopsy revealed multiple catastrophic sharp force injuries clustered along her upper left side. According to medical examiner Dr. Stephen Kogut, Jasmine had been curled into a fetal position when attacked, a posture of fear, pain, and desperate self-protection. The bindings had been placed on her while she was still alive, trapping her, rendering escape impossible. Jason Chen's arrest came on November 29th at his parents' home in Nolanville. Officers immediately noted the lacerations along his right hand and feet, injuries fractured into his skin like echoes of a violent confrontation. Inside his bedroom, investigators found a black backpack containing a chilling collection of handwritten notes. These pages were not confessions, but scripts, rehearsed narratives meant to absolve him. He crafted a story portraying Jasmine as unstable. He wrote that she vanished frequently, that she had a restraining order from an ex, that she battled homelessness. He even slandered her mother, suggesting alcoholism. Every line was engineered to make Jasmine look like a wandering troublemaker whose disappearance was unsurprising, a runaway no one should chase. Then detectives uncovered something even more insidious. Inside a glasses case, tucked into his bag, was Jasmine's SIM card, deliberately removed so he could control any message that might expose him. His own phone betrayed him further. Stored on it was a photograph of Jasmine taken inside his bathroom the night she vanished. He had screenshots of her texts, though the originals had been deleted. The morning after the killing, he sent her a message paired with a photo captioned, "Slept like a baby." Metadata revealed the photo had been taken 2 years earlier, repurposed to forge a digital illusion. Later that same afternoon, he texted again, "Hey, are we still good for dinner tonight?" A grotesque attempt to animate the dead, planting false footprints to mimic a living conversation. Then came January 2025, the opening of Jason Chen's trial, and his attorney, in a move that shocked the courtroom into a suffocating silence, did not begin with a declaration of innocence. He did not defend Jason's actions. He pursued a strategy no one expected. Jason Chen may have been responsible for Jasmine Pace's death, attorney Josh Wise argued, but he insisted it wasn't the result of careful planning. His only path to avoiding life without parole was persuading the jury that this was impulsive and emotional eruption that qualified as voluntary manslaughter. The defense crafted a story that felt almost offensively simple. They described a night of wine, tension, and jealousy boiling over. According to Jason's team, the couple had been drinking for hours. When Jasmine went to grab another bottle, she supposedly heard a series of Tinder alerts buzzing on Jason's phone. Multiple notifications, they said, set her off. She allegedly shattered a wine glass and attacked him. Panicked, Jason supposedly grabbed a kitchen knife left on the bedside table from earlier that evening and fought back. Every stab wound, they insisted, was defensive. The defense went further, claiming the restraints found on Jasmine's body weren't used during the struggle. They said Jason only applied them afterward, trying to pack her body into layers of plastic and a suitcase. He wasn't restraining her. They argued he was trying to cover up a moment of fear and confusion. But prosecutor Cody Wamp dismantled this narrative methodically. Medical examiner Dr. Cogwell testified that the injury pattern told a very different story. Jasmine had been curled in a tight, protective position, with nearly all wounds concentrated on one side. Her left hand showed clear defensive marks. Her right hand, however, showed almost none, not because she didn't fight, but because she physically couldn't. It had been tied down in that extreme, immobilizing position. The bindings weren't an afterthought. They were the method of control. Wamp then exposed more fabrications. Toxicology results showed no alcohol in Jasmine's system whatsoever. No wine had been consumed in the hours leading up to her death. The defense's wine-fueled argument claim was entirely invented. And those supposedly furious Tinder notifications, data from the app confirmed Jason hadn't received a single alert that day. Another lie. The most chilling testimony came from neighbor Courtney Brewer, who lived directly below Jason. She awoke around 2 a.m. to the sound of a woman's scream, fearful, desperate, not aggressive. Seconds later, she heard feet pounding toward a door. At 2:18 a.m., Jasmine sent her mother the dropped pin location, a final attempt to signal where she was and what danger she faced. Those 7 minutes told a devastating story. Jasmine tried to flee. She was caught. She was restrained. She was forced into a fetal position where she couldn't defend herself. And then the violence escalated. This wasn't passion. This wasn't panic. It was controlled, intentional cruelty. Over 6 days, the jury absorbed every piece of evidence: phone data, surveillance clips, photographs, witness statements. They heard about Jason casually playing Call of Duty after the killing, telling friends he just needed to finish cleaning up. They learned he messaged a Tinder match hours later, announcing, "I guess we're dating now." The defense tried to question the integrity of the crime scene, noting that Jasmine's mother, Katrina Pace, had entered the apartment multiple times before police fully processed it. She moved items, retrieved electronics, searched frantically for her missing daughter. But as one juror later explained, none of it changed the core issue. The defense had already admitted Jason was responsible for Jasmine's death. The real question was intent, and the evidence answered that without hesitation. Deliberations began at 4:15 p.m. Less than an hour later, the jury returned. The verdict: guilty of first-degree premeditated homicide. During sentencing, Jason's mother addressed the court through a translator, her voice shaking as she attempted to plead for her son's life. Jason's mother spoke softly as she addressed the courtroom. "He's a good boy," she said. "He isn't the monster people think he is. I only ask that the judge and the jury give him a second chance, a chance to come home someday and rebuild his future." Her plea was emotional, delivered with the kind of desperation only a parent can convey. Defense attorney Josh Wise echoed her sentiment. He urged the jurors to consider mercy, not absolution. He wasn't asking them to ignore the horror of Jason's actions or pretend they didn't happen. He simply asked that they allow Jason the possibility of parole when he reached old Ayat 73, so that hope, however faint, still existed. But the deliberations were swift. In under an hour, the jury returned with their decision: life imprisonment, with absolutely no chance for parole. They found the crime to be shockingly brutal, far beyond the threshold of ordinary homicide. It involved sustained suffering, extreme violence, and cruelty that served no purpose other than to cause pain. Jason Chen would never again walk free. When reflecting on the entire ordeal, one thing became glaringly obvious. Had Katrina and Travis Pace left everything to the police, Jasmine's case might have gone cold. The initial law enforcement response wasn't just poor, it bordered on total neglect. Officers found Jasmine's abandoned car in the Signal View condominium parking lot. They filed a report and walked away. When Katrina called the number linked to Jasmine's phone records, and Jason Chen blatantly lied to responding officers about his last interaction with her, nothing happened. No follow-up, no pressure, no urgency. Even after Jasmine's belongings were discovered inside Jason's apartment, paired with multiple neighbors reporting hearing a violent disturbance at the exact moment Jasmine sent her location pin, police still declined to request a search warrant. In the end, it took Katrina's persistence and her repeated entries into Jason's apartment to gather evidence herself to force the police into finally doing their job. She followed the GPS on Jasmine's vehicle. She obtained phone logs. She identified Jason as a liar and placed him at the center of the mystery. She pieced together the timeline law enforcement ignored. Only after she essentially handed them a solvable case did the Chattanooga Police Department begin conducting proper forensic work. And while their later efforts were competent, they arrived far too late, spurred only by a mother who refused to let bureaucracy bury her daughter's fate under paperwork and excuses. This case shined a harsh light on a deep flaw in how missing persons reports are handled. The idea that adults have the right to disappear may sound logical in theory, but in reality it often becomes a shield for inaction. When families bring forward concrete evidence that something is deeply wrong, when they highlight suspicious lies, alarming phone records, or belongings found in unsettling locations, law enforcement should respond with urgency, not dismissiveness. Adults can leave if they want to, should never override common sense and compassion. What families deserve is investigation, real, thorough investigation, not a shrug and a report number. During trial, the the defense tried to weaponize Katrina's determination. They suggested she had tampered with the apartment, hinting that she might have spread or planted evidence, but the jurors immediately saw through it. One later explained, everyone who entered that apartment contributed to contamination in some way, but it didn't matter. We already knew what he admitted, that he killed her. The evidence against Jason was overwhelming, not because the police were diligent, but because a mother refused to let her daughter's case slip into the void. Jasmine Pace's relentless search for answers exposed troubling questions about how many other families have faced the same dismissive treatment. How many have been told to wait, to be patient, to trust a system that was never built for urgency? Katrina did the job that should have belonged to the police. She followed leads, pulled records, and pieced together the truth with a determination no policy manual could replicate. She refused easy answers when the truth demanded effort. On the stand, Travis Pace struggled when asked about his former wife. Defense attorneys tried to undermine Katrina by attacking her credibility. Travis ultimately said he had no opinion on answer that spoke volumes about how the defense grasped for any strategy to distract from the overwhelming evidence. The tension in the courtroom was almost physical. It wasn't just the crime that shattered this family, but everything that happened afterward: the suspicion, the testimony, the unbearable choices. When Travis took the stand for the defense, several relatives quietly stood and walked out. The damage done to this family wasn't just emotional, it was structural, and the fractures may never fully mend. In the aftermath, Jasmine's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Jason Chen's parents, alleging they shielded him, supplied him with money, and passed along information while the Paces were frantically trying to find their daughter. Whether that civil case succeeds or not, the criminal trial brought one form of closure. With Jason's conviction and life sentence, one part of this long nightmare ended. The man who restrained Jasmine in a cruel, immobilizing position and subjected her to unthinkable violence will never again be free. Jasmine had dreams, big ones. She wanted children of her own someday. Her sister Gabby remembered how often she talked about motherhood, about the way she'd raise her kids, and the life she imagined building. She practiced with her nieces and her godson Juan, pouring the same intense love and protectiveness into them that she poured into everyone she cared about. She adored her rescue cats. She showed up when friends were falling apart. She never left relationships in pieces. Over and over, the people who loved her used the same words: intelligent, kind, devoted, brave, loyal. She made sure people felt cherished, seen, remembered. One friend said, "She always made sure you knew she loved you. She never let anyone feel alone." Jasmine Pace, 22 years old, a community college student, animal rescuer, an aunt who spoiled her nieces, a friend to anyone who needed one, deserved a life full of family, pets, laughter, and people who loved her the way she loved them. Instead, her last moments were filled with terror, helplessness, and betrayal. She was restrained, she was alone, and the police, who should have been searching for her, failed to take her disappearance seriously. Her parents refused to let that be the end. They found strength no one should ever have to summon. They followed leads when officers wouldn't. They collected evidence when authorities hesitated. They pushed through the silence, the excuses, the bureaucracy. They would not stop until someone listened. And because of that relentless determination, their daughter finally received justice. That's Jasmine's legacy. Not just the horror of what happened to her, but the extraordinary love her family showed in the face of a system that was supposed to help but didn't. Her story is a reminder of something deeply unsettling. Sometimes justice comes only because ordinary people refuse to give up. Sometimes families become detectives, advocates, and warriors because the institutions meant to protect them simply don't. Katrina and Travis Pace did what had to be done. They secured justice for their daughter when no one else would. And Jason Chen will spend the rest of his life in prison, exactly where the evidence and Jasmine's memory demand he be.
Was 2:18, 7 minutes. She screamed. Things happened. She was able to know she was in enough danger that she needed to send her mother her location. It wasn't fast. It wasn't fast at all, and we know that. 2:11 is 7 minutes from 2:8. It wasn't fast. She knew she was in danger. She tried to get out of the door, and he told you that she heard a door slam. Jasmine knew she was in trouble. She had time to use her phone before he started.
The hole.
I ask that, and we ask, that you give Jason the opportunity, as a 73-year-old man, to seek this redemption. Let's spend the next 5 decades behind bars reflecting on the choices that he made when he was 22 years old.
Respect.